Ancient Kemetic Path, Resurrecting the Ancestors to Empower the Descendants. Author, Anthony Gallucci. Thesis presentation, Naropa University, Spring 2020. I would like to thank the Naropa University Department of Religious Studies for providing an environment that fostered my curiosities for wisdom and insight. While I am indebted to the entire university, a special thanks is in order for the member of my thesis committee, Dr. Stephanie Juhas. Dr. Juhas went out of her way to help me formulate, organize, and present my thesis regardless of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. Genetically, I am 42% Indigenous African, 13% Eastern European Jewish, 12% Maltese Mediterranean, and a plethora of various ethnicities. I honor and embody my genetic lineages proudly. Scholarly, I have been offered insight as a layperson practitioner in Tibetan Buddhism, Kabbalah, Jewish mystical and cosmic contemplation, and Christian mysticism.
El-Kebulan, Mayat, Hotep, El-Kebulan, Ashe, Neter. Kemet, Tanahisi, Mayat, Taseti, Hotep, Ashe, Neter. Ashe, Ashe.
The religion of the ancient Kemetic people is vast and comprehensive. There is value in revisiting and resurrecting certain aspects of the ancient Kemetic path to empower people in the present. The historical reality which places ancient Kemet in the context of 3500 BC has been verified and validated by numerous Egyptologists and anthropologists. The religious aspects of ancient Kemet have been recovered and are now again being given the opportunity to be revisited and updated to the context of the 21st century. My thesis visits the historical narrative of the Kemetic timeline, the foundational Kemetic cosmogony, and the ethical compass of the Kemetic path. The ancient Kemetic historical narrative, spiritual path, and wisdom, and the ancient ethical lens are an awakening and refreshing addition to the religions of the eastern, western, and northern geographical regions of the earth, which dominate our worldview. Eurocentric scholarship is mainly inaccurate, ignorant, exclusionary, lazy, classist, gender-biased, anti-queer, racist, and pseudo-scientific. In a racist Western worldview, Eurocentrism became the foundation upon which post-17th century Western scholarship was supposed. Consequently, the relationship between Eurocentrism and Afrocentrism is often a zero-sum game benefiting only Eurocentrism. To counteract the falsities, fallacies, and pseudo-scholarship of the Eurocentrism endemic in Egyptology, it has been highly encouraged by many credible Africologists or Kemetologists to study the evolution of Kemetic culture, theology, cosmogony, cosmology, epistemology, ontology, philosophy, and religion with accuracy and ethics. Africologists, Kemetologists, and Egyptologists must begin by readjusting and repositioning their preconditioned socio-ethnic view to a more inclusive, person-centric lens. The origin of Homo sapiens sapiens and our evolution is a separate phenomenon from the racist perceptions and misnomers which often dominate narratives regarding the evolution of people. According to scientific scholarship, modern people are an evolution upon a subspecies of a larger group of primates, hominids, whom originated in the land we now call Africa. The Kemetic people were descendants of the more original high culture or civilization, the Nagada, which envisioned and constructed a religious foundation for a spiritual perspective supposed upon the quest for ontological and noetic insight and an ultimate embodiment of wisdom as a praxis. Similar to cultural and social developments, the cosmogonic and cosmological and philosophical undertones of the religious practices of the Kemetic people evolved coinciding with and influenced by major climatic shifts in Alkebulan. As a result of climatic shifts, the ancient Kemetic people of geographical northern Kemet, Mayadi, evolved from a pre-existing subculture of indigenous Alkebulanian people of the region located in geographical southern Kemet, Nagada. The scholastically agreed upon beginning of the formal ancient Kemetic political and social leadership structure began with the blending of the pre-dynastic sub-civilizations of the southern, middle, and northern regions of ancient Kemet with the geographically northern Nubia, modern-day Sudan, Eritrea, and Ethiopia. Within the unified high civilization of ancient Kemet, the pharaohship of ancient Kemet were the members of society who drove the establishment of dynasty-based time periods as time moved forward. The end of the succession of Kemetic lines of dynastic leaders began with the conquering of ancient Kemet by the mighty and militaristically dominant Kushite Empire, and followed by the opportunistic Persian imperialism of 600 to 500 BC. Persian imperialism in the region was completed by 525 BC. Spanning from the 1950s to the early 1970s, the United African Arab Republic replaced the nation of Egypt as the dominant social and political presence in the region. Following the 1970s, the region went through more transitions until in the mid-1970s when the Western world began to intersect with the region. The resurrected cosmogonies and cosmologies found in ancient Kemet were extensive. The ancient sacred symbolism included origin narratives, a supreme and universal non-dual goddess, god, and many sub-goddesses and gods, and a profusion of theological and ontological comprehensions. The intention of many of the ancient Kemetic cosmogonies appeared to be to articulate the complex relationships between various forces of one's personal realm, the natural world, and the metaphysical and cosmic planes of existence and post-existence, non-dual primordial and postmordial. Kemetic cosmogonies, lineage. The shared linear structure of the spiritual and genetic lineages of the Kemetic people, as far back as we can resurrect, was consistently acknowledged as a plausible and historical account of a lineage from the primordial to the first Homo sapiens sapiens and beyond. The narrative of the journey was constructed upon stones as a symbolic message in form and figure, metu neter, hieroglyphics. It is further supported that the foundation of the Kemetic spiritual wisdom was transmitted to the ancestors of the ancient Kemetic people with the full trappings of civilization from the Nubian people of a region found south of upper southern Kemet. The Nubian people themselves evolved from the first Homo sapiens of southern Africa, Alkebulan. There are universal and foundational ancient Kemetic concepts regarding creation which were discovered and studied in spatially and non-spatially based subcosmogonies and have been established by Afrocentric Egyptologists and Kemetologists as the evolution of Kemetic cosmogony. The concepts are modernly termed the primeval, before the duality of non-duality and duality, primordial, time in non-duality and duality, the astrological, or Heka, metaphysical, middle place or cosmic planes, the natural spatial realm, space, material, and matter realm as a duality, and the postmordial after the duality of non-duality and duality. Neter beget Re. Re, Ra, beget Atum, restricted, process, dark to light spectrum, matter, appearing finite duality, present, fractured, androgynous, appearing linear time. Atum became existent as an image of the primordial imagelessness, non-existent, and laid upon the planetary realm. Once balanced, Atum longed for a grounded space of being or existence. The grounded space of being presented itself and captured the power of present presence, moment. The shared components of the various Kemetic cosmogonies serve to create a foundational lineage, ethics, rituals, practices, and wisdom for reactivating the ancient Kemetic path in the contemporary and throughout time and space. The cosmological lineage of a foundational Kemetic path. Pre-primordial spaciousness, Neter, the embryonic pleroma. Primordial realm, Noon. The time between the primordial and spatial realms, Re or Ra. Spatial expression of the primordial realm as a reflection of Re, Atum. Cosmic realm, Shu, Tefnut, Geb, and Nut. Divine realm, Thought, Mayat, Anubis, and more yet to be accurately identified, up to the Zeptepi culture. The Bidis realm, or the Pharaohic realm, overlaps with the indigenous realm. The indigenous realm. The indigenous Africans of the Nile Valley, those of Tamari, Ta-Nehisi, Merdu, Kush, or Ethiopia, and others along the Central African Great Lakes, beginning with the Black African Adam and Black Eve of Al-Kebulan, the Garden of Eden, to the Levantine corridor, to present-day people, i.e., the Black African Noah lineage, among other lineage streams. The ethical practices of the Kemetic people were said to have been founded in the goddess Neter, Mayat, the divine feminine. Both the exoteric and mystical religious Kemetic paths were inseparable from one's physical journey. One can traverse the path in an evolved fashion only by diligently using trustworthy and ethical behavior and equitably interchanging knowledge and ritual practice. In the mythos, the Cometian would offer their heart to Mayat to be weighed against the weight of the feather. If the feather was heavier than the burden of ignoring the laws of Mayat, i.e., sin missing the mark through one's life, then they would be regurgitated back into the earthly realm to attempt to hit the mark or live a virtuous life in accordance to the Mayat doctrine. The 7 principles of Mayat were translated by Egyptologists as truth, justice, balance, order, compassion, harmony, and reciprocity. Compassion, in its contemporary Mayasian significance, could be interpreted as a sensitivity to the complexity of every circumstance which arises as an iteration of existence. Compassion beckons a focus on the collective confusion of actualizing the non-dual in a duality as a challenging endeavor. Compassion is holding space for oneself and every other self to be fallible, ignorant, and unbalanced in our collective efforts of hitting the mark and reconnecting with the infinite, non-duality, Neter, divine, Allah, Jah, God, Source, etc. The doctrine of Mayat specified the 7 principles of Mayat. The remnants of the ethical compass of the Kemetic people was first enshrined in the New Kingdom, 1569 to 1081 BC, era of ancient Kemetic dynastic progression. The translations of the value system were begun by the European Egyptologist E.A. Wallace Budge in the late 19th century. The exercise of translating the translations of Egyptologist E.A. Budge from an Afrocentric scholarship is, in part, an effort to decolonize the misogynistic and racist values held by the cultural norms of the mainly European Egyptologist, who may have falsely translated and then transliterated the value of the Kemetic symbols and language system, Meduneter, into Germanic, European English. 1. I have strived towards virtuous practice and to sustain moral action which aligns with the 7 ethical principles of Mayat. 7. I have not idolized oneself or any other self as superior. I have abstained from elevating oneself or any other self to a higher mystical status, guru, than any other being is capable of transcending. 15. I have trusted those who exhibit trustworthy actions and praxis. I have not behaved in any way that inhibits one's ability to be trusted. I have abstained from lying, sharing established falsehoods to oneself or to any other self. 21. I have abstained from sexual misconduct towards or manipulation and abuse of any person or being, as we are all an extrapolation of the non-dual pre-primordial netter, the One. 24. The Mayat doctrine equals law. I have respected the balance of the ethical form Mayat as an ultimate expression of the blueprint or key to re-entering the formless netter. I have upheld the path, law of Mayat, in every aspect of form, finite, material, postmordial, metaphysical, celestial, cosmic, etc. 28. I have not imposed more than necessary upon oneself or any other self. The threshold of necessity can only be established by one who is holding the lower status or role power in the power paradigm. I have been free of violence or perpetuating violence. 35. I have not minimized oneself or any other self's ability to sustain living. I have not dislodged or strayed from the path of the shared ancestral lineage Mayat, and one has always remembered and honored the ancestors. I have not elevated or glorified those ancestors whom strayed from the Mayatian way, path, and law. 41. I have not inhibited the sustenance of any child. I have not hidden the principles of Mayatian living, and have not lived in a way that deems the path exclusive, unattainable, or belonging to only a specific culture or limited group of the Homo sapiens sapiens species. 42. I have not taken life or the ability to thrive from oneself or any other self or being.
Thank you for engaging in my thesis. I appreciate your time. Time appears to be a very valuable commodity. Hotep, Ashe, Ashe. El-Kebulan, Mayat, Hotep, El-Kebulan, Ashe, Neter. Kemet, Tanahisi, Mayat, Taseti, Hotep, Ashe, Neter. Ashe, Ashe.